Good evening and welcome to another Monday Night Live. Here every week, Simon and I taking all of your questions about golf equipment, club fitting, and of course a bit of golf coaching too. Busy week, as per, now that all of these releases have come out. Golf, quick roundup, 59 on the PGA Tour. It was a who's who of nobody on the PGA Tour and a little bit the same on the DP World Tour. But it was nice to see Laurie Cantor. I mean, I was looking at his stat. He's had a win, a third and a second. I mean, it's great to see him. And Marco Penge as well, who is a sort of a South region guy who's got his card last year. I think he just kept his card on the bubble, didn't he?
Just kept it, yeah.
And he had a second in South Africa, or sorry, third in South Africa. So he'll be happy about that, getting a bit of cash up nice and early in the season.
So you say you want to get it done early, don't you?
Big time. Play with the bank's money. Play with the bank's money going forwards. What's it's changing probably week to week for you at the moment, and I'm sure everyone would be interested to hear any standouts equipment-wise this week for you. Anything that's shocked?
I think it's still this week. I think continue to be impressed with the Strixon drivers.
Yeah, you said that last week.
And just consistency of performance. They've been really good. I think if anything's really stood out. Ping Fairways have been performing well, but using a bit more loft because they don't spin as much as they used to. But they've been good. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything that's really jumped out this week. I think in particular, it's just a lot of good kit.
Yeah, brilliant.
And the ability to then fine tune that to the player in front of you rather than going, oh, this is a one-off, this doesn't work, I'm screwed. You've got a couple of routes you can go with, which is nice.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, as usual, we've got the discs with us. If you've got any questions for Simon or I, we are always here and ready to take them. Whether you are a seasoned veteran of the game or a complete beginner, we'll take them all. So no question is too silly. We've got James mixing the discs behind there with the editing and the cameras. So if you've got any special camera angles that you like, my good side here or Simon's,
I don't have a better side. So.
You let us know and we will get that angle to you. So we'll crack straight on into the questions so that we don't have to rush at the end. Chris Johnston is first off the mark. Hi, fellas. My GT3 has the stock Gen 5 hazardous at 451-2 inches.
45.5.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon. I make myself look silly every week. And the
well,
sand wedge
is a technical detail of the club.
Yeah, 45.5. Yeah. Anyway, 45.5 inches, and I would have put 45.5. But you know, that's me. And sand wedge is D7. Sorry, Chris. How much would a hazardous smoke yellow, same length, reduce the sand wedge? Head weight is standard 8 grams. Thanks. Love the channel. Thank you.
So. Swing weight would be, I mean, that's heavy. At that length, that's still heavy. If you take a ½ inch off, D7 turns to about D4 and a bit. So it's still fairly strong. Has this yellow, if you can get one, if it's at the same weight as the Gen 5 black, it may take 1 to 2 points off. The black Gen 5 isn't that tip balanced, but yeah, 1.5, I'd have thought, should help. It's still very long for a driver, I think, and that swing weight of that length it's very head heavy.
Yeah, 45.5 is a bit of a bygone era, that, isn't it?
Ping up at 46 is standard.
What?
Yeah, I know.
46?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I mean,
you swing it quicker, don't you?
Great. But he was at 44.5 for a while, wasn't it? I mean, everyone was cutting it to 44.5.
Average on tour is still, it's now at 45 or close to. It used to sit at 44.5 till not that long ago. But now they're trying to eke every yard out. They might squeeze just over 45, but for them, it's strike consistent. For amateurs being in play, 2 or 3 yards more is by the by if you're spraying at 20 yards. So actually just be in play. And technically it's hard to move a club and control it at that length, which is why the top players don't do it. Yeah. But for retail, well, if you put it on a robot, it goes quicker. Yeah, great, just goes further into trouble. Yeah. And I can probably count on one hand over the years someone who moves a 46-inch club as efficiently and doesn't lose dispersion as a 45-inch. So.
Fair dues. Sablansky, good evening. Musketeers, good evening to you. Thanks for giving me a dodgy handle to call out. You both look fine and dandy, thank you. Do Callaway still have stock of the Apex Fusion TI heads?
Yeah, currently not aware of any issues regarding stock for Callaway on that. Occasionally when you get to this time of year, there might be the odd the odd club head that's a little bit out or a little bit delayed. So you might find, say for example, a 5-iron or an 8-iron goes out for a little bit, but generally speaking, that'll be replenished fairly soon if there are any shortages. But in the grand scheme of things, note supply seems good at the moment.
TYB, hi guys. Keep up the good work. Thank you. We will try. If in rollback ball speed reduces, won't this decrease the smash factor?
It will do for everyone though. So the one thing that we always come back to with the rollback is the longest will still be the longest. So I don't know how much it'll achieve really, other than getting him hitting a couple of clubs more in the greens. Still advantage to the long hitter who can hit it straight. So
absolutely,
yeah.
and I think we've all seen short holes play tough.
Yeah,
you go and watch the golf in Australia if you've ever been lucky enough to watch tournaments in Australia. I mean, they're relatively short golf courses out there, but the greens are so quick. They're so undulating flags. They don't get silly under par. So why not just make it keep the balls the same and just make golf courses a bit harder?
The interesting thing with that as well is the balls run away from the greens. They run off. They're not. If you look at 59 at PGA National is not technically an easy golf course, but you give them the receptive conditions and they can score in anything. So actually make it firm and fast and get them. If you miss, you miss. Then try and get up and down up a 6-foot slope.
Exactly.
Trying to, So,
yeah, 100%. I agree. Lalo round. Can you hit the Axiom 75R versus the steel fiber I-80? How they would fit with the T200 heads? Right. Thanks a lot and keep the great work. Thank you.
I shall do.
Simon will head off and grab those. I will pop over to my channel and answer Noel 1988. Evening, gents. Evening, Noel. When should a wedge be changed? I have a Vokey SM8 from new. Just wondering, is it time for a new one? There's between 1 and 3 rounds a week on it. I mean, I don't know what the equation is for Simon, who's just being called away from one of the fitters. I used to just run my fingers down the front of the face, and if it felt like my fingernails would grab on the wedge, I wouldn't replace it. That seems as good a reason as any. Just talking about wedges.
Yeah, I think.
Did you hear what I said? What my feel was?
I think if where there's that much more milling in between the grooves now, if the top edge of the main groove is starting to round off, normally, I mean, you won't really find that on anything less than 54 degree. But if the top edge of the groove is starting to round off, then you're not going to get the same bite to the ball. And then if you've worn off the milling in between the grooves as well, a dry lie, you're still going to get spin. But if it gets wet, then it's going to start to pop up. So that's what I'd look for, the top edge just rounding off.
Yeah, and you'll feel
wearing it.
And you'll feel that if you run your fingers down. Grab yourself a brand new wedge, do it. Grab yourself an old wedge, do it. And if you've got an even older wedge, do it. And you'll feel the difference and go from there. That'd be a good way of doing it. Richard Skinner. Hi, Simon. I'm here too, Richard. I'm joking. Can you test the Callaway Elite Triple Diamond driver with the Artera Blue shaft in as well? You're stacking up now. You're going to be a busy boy tonight.
You haven't hit anything today, so right.
Yeah, so except the 50 before, right?
No, actually, I haven't not made one swipe yet. Yeah. So got the T200 Axiom first. So actually, the two shafts are very different in the way they swing. So the Axiom is a more tip balanced shaft. Obviously, it's got the Velour one, but the balance points down the bottom. Whereas the steel fibre is a little bit more even through. It's got a graphite core with a load of steel filament around the outside. So, I mean, the shaft relative to the T200 head, that really won't make a difference. The head gives you the forgiveness, the sort of off-centre performance, and the base loft and ball speed off the face. Whereas the shaft's about timing. So, kind of swinging this one, it's oh god, the lower back didn't move too far. That was all arms, which is probably a good job. That's got weight at the bottom. But the Axiom feels really stable at the tip. You can swing the bottom end, gives you a little bit of kick through the upper half. But really tight, stable shaft. Head's given me plenty of launch, and spin's just on the stronger side. So distance-wise, pretty efficient.
Very good. Nice starter for 10.
The steel fibres tend to feel quite firm. That's probably the one critique of them, is that they're not the most responsive feeling shaft because of that kind of core that they've got. But they've been out a long time, and they're actually now getting more play than ever because more players are working on speed and rotation. So actually, at the kind of the crossover weight of steel to graphite, you've got the 85s here, you've got the 95, 75, 110s. There are plenty of options. So yeah, the pickup, the dead weight's a little heavier. But because the balance is a little higher up, that one's gone more left. So for me, that just sort of allows me to flip it over a little bit more. And that's just taken the flight down a little bit. You know, both very efficient for speed. In principle, the steel fibers are that little bit lower spin. But depending on your delivery timing, axiom or steel fiber, they will swing differently. One will suit better.
Gave that a bit more oomph, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pointless after hitting that few shots. My lower back doesn't really want to move. But it was the Elite Triple Diamond and the Aratera Blue.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. While Simon nips off and does that, I will answer Papa B's question. Hello, young men. I keep hearing about how the swing should go left in the follow through, but don't know how to do that without an over-the-top slice swing path. Help me, Stuart. Well, you know, I think a good way of feeling what you're referencing is grab yourself a golf club and put yourself up against a wall. I can't demonstrate this any other way other than doing this. Hopefully James can zoom in and get me over here. So I'm going to put the club head up against the wall. And this is only going to give you a sensation of what you want to feel the handle and the head to do. So I've now set myself up into my posture, and I'm now going to make a through swing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my handle in. So now the handle's disappeared. And can you see how the club head is still on the wall? And so all of a sudden, the club head is much, much straighter, and the handle has disappeared off to the left. What you're doing that's causing the path to go left is that you're making the head go to the left at the same rate the handle is, and it shouldn't work that way. You need to elongate the path so that you can make the head. Can you see how the club head is going down the ball line? It's not going down the ball line, it just looks that way. It's actually arcing back in. But you understand that if the handle is disappearing out of your vision and my club head is still over here, I can make the handle feel like it goes around to the left and keep the club head over there. If you want more insights on that, go and check out a video on my channel, Good Golf Coaching. It's called Handle Path, is on the thumbnail. Check that out, and that will give you a really good insight into how to achieve it. And also maybe head over and watch my broom series, because that will help you out too. Hopefully that answers your question, Papa B. Over to you, Simon.
I'm just jiggering around with weights, because someone have been jiggering around with
I think we've all been jiggering around with weight for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Thanks to donuts, cookies,
going to say, yeah,
and all sorts of unpleasantness.
And an ageing metabolism.
Yeah, man. I was just saying to guys here, young Christos, who I coach, his son Rocco was in. He's got a little tablet, and it fires questions, whether it's times table, division, and he had to answer the questions over a minute. And his average time for answering the question was 0.8 of a second.
Ridiculous.
He could answer it quicker than I could read it.
Is he Rain Man?
Oh, it was ridiculous. I said, I was just utterly gobsmacked for a whole minute. He was just tapping away on his little keypad, on his little iPad, and the answers were coming, the questions were coming at him so fast. Unbelievable.
Simple, Stuart, simple.
It's, well, I am. So what are we going to? What's going to happen with this club shaft? What's the instinct going to be? What's
Aratera is a new brand, and what they've done is, rather than putting kind of a several layers of bias core and then several layers of linear material down, so bias core controls the torque more, linear is the bend, probably the stiffness of it. But rather than having kind of a batch and a batch, it's a single layer and a single layer and a single layer. So it's the principle is a more consistent, smoother feel. The blue is one that they've partnered up with Callaway to try and get it out onto tour as much as possible. And so as an upgrade, it's very little relative to what it would be aftermarket. Right. But a really interesting structure. The blue is the more tip responsive. So it's designed with a responsive midsection. And then the grey is stiffer tip, and the blue is softer tip.
Very good. Do you think these guys sit at home and go, why don't we give that a try? Let's go weaving it that way and see what that does?
I think I think ultimately that one of the it's simpler to make them with a batch of bias than a batch of linear, because you're not having to switch between machines. Or you're not going to switch the machine settings and things around. So it takes a lot longer, it's more complicated. They should be dearer than they are relative to other shafts of a similar quality. But yeah, they're just really smooth feeling shafts, and the Blue series is with Callaway.
While you say that, I think we've had a lot of clients come in. Oh, is it these ones here? Yeah, sorry to suddenly dash in front of the camera, James. We've had a lot of clients. I think we should show these up on the screen again, because we've had a lot of people super interested in these. Ewan was in earlier.
Let me get one of the more colourful ones.
Yeah, I've just plucked up a couple of these, but these clubs here, we're talking about different bits of kit and technology. I mean, these are about as... I really like these satin looks. I love the satin look, is fantastic, isn't it?
Satin's good,
but not a lot of tech in them.
No, very, very little.
I mean, it's a little bit...
It's a blade that's being kind of ground into, essentially these don't exist until you order them. So you can have the numbers written in letters on the sole, you can have paint fills, you can have your company logo etched into the back of it. But not a lot of tech, no. There is a pocket cavity in one of the models, but obviously less you can do on the back.
The reason why I went to that is because we're talking about a small company that's obviously trying to sort of get involved in Callaway. These small companies are so rare now on the golf market, would you say? Yeah,
I think shafts you probably get more smaller companies. But yeah, the niche stuff you tend to find sort of Asia mainly. That is very much niche. It's not high volume. Can't be, but it's what they do.
No, sure.
It's quite nice to still have those around.
Exactly, that's
artisanal stuff.
Yeah, and they're not now, but what are the really nice golf bags? Vessel.
Oh, Vessel. Yeah, they've become a bigger.
They've become bigger. We first saw a Vessel bag. Oh, that's nice. It's nice to see these manufacturers of these companies that have started up, sort of dip their toe in the water, and produce something that's niche, a little bit sexy, bit fun. Obviously, people that probably got the founders have got a spare bit of cash. They want to make something. They love the game, probably, and it came out. And I think it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that they will maybe do things that the big brands wouldn't do as well, because they've got the flexibility to not have to do such big runs, which is quite nice. So Triple Diamond this year is definitely a safer head than previous models. The AI Smoke and the Paradigm before were real low spin cannons. This one, it's still low spin, but it's definitely a safer club head, which makes it probably better across the board. More people, but it's not quite as bomber-like as previous models. Definitely won't be, based on this being my fourth swing of the day. Oh, that's so far out the bottom. Take two.
Take two. Loosen up. Warm up. It's busy.
Swing line was nice. Right. Let's see if I can catch some of the club face on this.
There you go.
Yeah. So you feel. With this, when I first tested, I was quite surprised at how it's hard to feel a dominant kind of kick point. So with this one, it's a very consistent, feels like a very consistent bend all the way through, rather than a point where you get a hard grip section or a hard tip section. The grey feels stiffer in the tip, but the blue, it's a really smooth load through the shaft. And so if you're someone who doesn't work the shaft hard in the swing and wants to feel a bit back but get some stability to impact, they are a great shaft.
Watch this space. Well, hopefully that gave you some insight. And during that time, we've had a load of questions, which is great to see. Keep them coming in. We'll endeavour to get through them all. Eric Wallace, good evening, guys. Oh, so that was for Richard Skinner, so hopefully you enjoyed that, Richard. Eric Wallace, good evening, guys. Can you demo the Ping 10K versus the Ping G440 driver? I wanted to know if there is any tangible differences. Do you agree the G440 is faster, launches higher, but also spins more?
Definitely, in principle, spins a little bit more. The 10K stuff is always quite... There are fewer of them making that argument, because the moment you've got to go quite a heavy weight at the back, which means the frame weight ahead's got to be on the heavier side, which then means that if you take any weight out, it's not 10K anymore. So that's why a few less of them are starting to kind of state that. Yeah, I mean, the 430 10K should be a bit lower spin and a bit of a stronger flight, which is why still quite a few of the tour guys are using it. 440 is good though,
right,
as we'll find out.
Fantastic. Papa B says, I knew if anyone could explain it, you could, Stuart. Thank you very much, Papa B, for your confidence in my ability. While Simon heads off and get Eric's request, aim for the bushes. Great handle that. Hi gents, hope you are well. We are. Is there any effective home techniques to work out what is the correct shaft weight driver for yourself?
I
think
the more balanced you can stay while swinging it,
yeah,
the more likely to be right it is. Yeah, if you can move at pace, stay grounded and finish stable,
and find the fairway,
that's a good start. And get strike. It's a tough one to try and give you if you do this, it's right, because you've got balance point in there as well. So there are a lot of layers to it, which is why we've got so many shafts on the wall, is to find a product that someone doesn't have to compensate with. That's why there are so many products out there. So yeah, to find a kind of a home fix is quite a tough one to say, right, these are the 2 keys, do this and it'll be great.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, that would be a start point.
Hopefully that helps you and makes you aim less at the bushes. Jason Owen, does the average golfer really need 14 clubs in the bag, as the swing is not consistent? And more importantly, the on-course decision we make. I play off 15 and now only play with 10 clubs. What? It's a good argument that you make, but I think there is a lot of joy to be had in using different golf clubs. The fact that you have, in your mind's eye, you're picturing a different shot, you're using all of the different clubs. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If it doesn't slow the pace down, I don't think there's a problem. I think people, as they get older, the swings get slow and the yardage is concertina. I think then you might want to think about dropping clubs. So, I don't know how old you are, Jason. If you're, at the thick end of 40 like I am, then you might, I'm clinging on to 40, in fact, not at the thick end, I'm at the
thin end.
Thin end, yeah, that's right.
Thin end of the wedge.
Yeah. You might want to get less clubs in your bag, but I think if you're a young buck swinging quick, you need all of them. You really do need all of them.
I was going to say, I think hitting distance is the marker for it, because now, granted, 14 is a maximum rather than necessity, and there are some players that simpler is better. But the better your standard gets, and the faster you swing, the further you hit, the bigger the gaps get, but also the more strategy calls that you're going to want options for, whether it's ball flight or distance control, trajectory. Kind of, do you attack a hole? Do you not attack a hole? Whereas if you're and the more seriously inverted commas that you're playing as well, you kind of want to have those may want to have those options. Not everyone does. As Stuart rightly said, the slower your swing gets, the less distance you hit it. Well, you're not going to, I had a picture at 130 yards. I can't have one club below that. I need options to get back. And if you're going to add clubs to the bag, add them more in the lower end rather than the top end, would be what I would say.
Very good. Kevin Phillips, club build question. Oh, we don't normally get this. I bought a used driver shaft with someone put an extension in. How much work is it to remove it? If I just cut it, will it throw off any specs like swing weight, etc.? Thank you.
Essentially, it's a slight counterbalance. It depends what material it's made out of as to how much weight it is. Depends how far it's been glued in. So some extenders, someone only glues in an inch and a bit, and sometimes they glue them in down to here. So it's a bit of a possibly, definitely, maybe. It will have some effect, and cutting it off isn't the worst thing in the world. If it's been installed well, then it might be quite hard to get out. But yeah, in principle, if it's a lightweight extender, then it's minimal impact as long as it's, say, not been pushed kind of 3/4 of the way down the grip.
Very good. Most likely due to my skill level, Minsock Park asks, or lack thereof, but I think it has taken me the better part of a year to adjust to my new clubs, especially with lighter shafts. There was no question in that. It was just a statement.
Yeah, it can take a little bit of time, and sometimes if you're like a windsock, it's got a good amount of speed, and there are times where we've had people come in and go, oh, first round out, I've gone and shot the best round ever. Great, wonderful, but normally it does take a bit of bedding in, and the feel shots are the ones that, if you're someone who plays shots rather than just taking a stock swing, then that can take a bit of time to get out of old kind of, oh, this feel creates this shot. Actually, it doesn't anymore. So kind of relearning those can be quite tough. Yeah.
I remember an old tour player, you probably won't remember, Carl Mason, played on the European tour.
Oh, he was a ping player.
Yeah, he used to practice a lot. Well, he was demoing the new Callaway Big Bertha. He was just switching over. And he had this Callaway Big Bertha for 3 months before he put it in his bag as a gamer. So if the tour player is back then taking 3 months and he's hitting balls every day, depending on how many rounds of golf, it could take you a year to get the same 3 months worth of golf that he's played with his driver, and you've changed the full bag. So
look at, a lot of the top guys haven't put the new TaylorMade in yet.
Right.
Yeah, and they will really want to put them in.
Right.
So, does take a little bit of crossover time.
For sure. Aim for the bush is being very, very demanding tonight. He's asked another question. We allow you to ask as many questions as you like. Fire away. That's what we're here for. Sorry for another question. If allowed, you're absolutely allowed. What driver shaft would you start with for testing if you have a Modus 120S in the irons? Swing speed is 106. Thanks again, chaps.
Depends what shafts you've got access to. Sounds like a cop-out answer to that, but it does. I mean, it's something that's kind of fairly easy to get hold of. You could, if you've got some of the well, it depends what head you're working with, but one of the test shots, the Tensei 1K Black in 65 shouldn't be a million miles off. It's fairly tip balanced. That won't be a million miles off a start point, I would say. It's something that's easy to get hold of. And there are so many out there that you could say. It depends what kind of price bracket are you wanting the shaft in. If you're going to aftermarket stuff, there are so many options. But as a stock one, Tensei 1K Black 65 stiff. Give that a go first.
Fantastic.
Right,
Fantastic.
430 10K first.
All right.
Right.
That was nice.
Slightly lower on the face,
That was
maybe,
nice.
but solid.
That was nice.
Yeah, findable.
Findable, yeah.
Good start.
Don't aim for the bushes.
Don't aim for definitely not.
Don't aim for the bushes.
Definitely not. If I aim there, it's
That's
going to go where I'm aiming.
That would be brilliant. You get 2 handles. The first handle, aim for the bushes, and then the very next question comes from don't aim for the bushes.
Don't aim for the bushes, yeah. Oh, it was a rotter.
Yeah, that wasn't your best.
Swing for the hills.
Yeah, that was all that chat. Aiming for the bushes.
I had thoughts of bushes in my mind.
Yeah, that's right.
That's going to do one more. So 10K, actually, one of the things that I find, not just an excuse for that shot, is the heavily back-weighted heads. I find, because I have a little bit of a drop open in transition, I find it opens the face even more. So I find it harder to regulate the face with a really heavy back-weighted head. It wasn't just it was a horrific swing, that last one. So I find, whilst it is very stable, and that's kept, for that strike, it's kept the spin pretty low, because that was a bit low and a bit heely. I find it hard to find the club face with it. So a smaller head, like I'd actually hit the LST better than that. But it's, considering how ropey that strike was, it's actually kept the ball flight really pretty solid. But it's not as they rightly said, who asked the question, but as they rightly said earlier, it's not a massively high launching head, the 10K. Switch to
not a head for me. Give me high launch and more spin, baby. But I have actually, I was filming some content for a video. I'm changing my scheduling now. I've been releasing videos every other day on my channel. And the edits are getting longer. The thumbnails are getting a bit more finicky. I've had to go. I'm going to move it down to a Wednesday and a Sunday. It's been.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I can't keep it on, but with everything else that's going on, work-wise. But what was my point to that? What were you just talking about then?
I was talking about the 430 being a low launcher. You say
yes, and spin. Yes. So I was doing some content, some video that I'm releasing on Wednesday. and I was hitting shots, and I was actually hit a couple of practice shots and up in my dynamic loft and launch angle and stuff. And it's nice that we just don't get the time to work on our game.
Everyone says, "Oh, you hit balls every day, don't you?"
Yeah.
It's like, no. Literally, the first one here is the first one today. This time of the year, also, it's bonkers. But I played Saturday, which was I only played 9 holes this year before that, and you won't have even done that.
Well, I know what I did because I went out to Portugal with Christos. So I was out there and played 4 rounds, and he didn't beat me. I think that's going to be the last trip where he doesn't beat me.
That one, isn't he?
No, he's going to get close, unfortunately. Up to 105 miles an hour. Well, 104.8 we got tonight on his driver speed. So there we go.
He's going to be overtaking both of us very soon.
I know. He loves his new GT driver, by the way. Loves it. Good. Absolutely loves it.
Yeah, so 440 is interesting. The 430 looks like the face looks squarer than this, the same loft, same specs. But yeah, the face shape looks a little bit different.
Skadoosh.
Still out the heel, but noticeably more launch. Again, now the heel on the 440 is where they've definitely focused on. They've thinned out the sleeve as it goes in. They've taken weight out there to make the heel a bit faster. And it is definitely more stable out the heel. But you can see their launch angle's up about a degree. So
I had a ping.
Notably half like there.
Yeah, I mean, I had a ping years ago, and they always, it always felt such a friendly driver to use.
Yeah, and they have been for forever. I mean, that's been their signature piece. I mean, that one was actually relatively well hit. So it's better launch, but the spin's down because I didn't catch it right out the neck. Look, there's even the ball strike mark. Look at that. That was actually quite good.
And
much better than the previous.
Have the pings got as much ball speed off them as some of the other brands?
Yeah, the more you remove weight from the face, so low and forward is fast and low spin, but unforgiving. Low and back is forgiving and not quite as quick because you get a bit more deformation of the head. So, I mean, we're talking about marginal amounts, but that's why SLDR was such an absolute bomb because it had no spin, had loads of speed, but it was a complete pig. Right. You were out the middle or you were just miles off. But you could give someone drives that you could never match.
It's a complete
Even
pig.
Now, if the best shots with that head are going to go further than anything else.
Your driver is a complete pig. I like that.
Yeah.
So job to journey, Peter Cantor. I'm shooting a little podcast with him tomorrow, talking about golf and my career and stuff. So stay tuned for that. We'll be coming to a video near you soon.
Dulcet tones of Peter Cantor.
Yes, absolutely. Job to journey. So Peter says, job to journey. Played Hankley back-to-back in the sun and never swung my PG sim better. Thanks to Stu's guidance. Would there be any business case for an upgrade 5 years on?
And the middle of the face isn't going to be that different. It's off-centre in principle where there's going to be a gain, or there could be a gain, depending on where your strike point is. It's one where I had a chap in this morning with original Epic Sub-Zero. It's still a bloody good head. And actually from an efficiency and a launch and spin point of view, I've got nothing on it. So just because there's newer stuff doesn't mean you're going to see a huge difference. And the answer is definitely maybe. It's worth a check just to cross-reference. But if it's going well, 5 years old sounds a lot. It's kind of 3 series old. There's still a lot of good tech in that head. And if it's going well, don't automatically look to jump from it. But worth a test to see is there anything tangible. If not, great, keep it.
Perfect. Minsock Park. Yes, Minsock Park goes on to ask, most likely due, because Minsock talked about taking him a year to get used to his irons, most likely due to my skill level or lack thereof. No, I've read that one out already.
Golfers are good at talking themselves down though as well. Minsock's better than he makes out.
Minsock goes on to say, it's all been a positive change. And I feel a lot more confident with my new clubs now. Just found it curious how those that switch every year buying new equipment does it. Good news is I think I'm finally ready to get the gapping in soon.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those who kind of change and change and change, all you're doing is you're actually self-sabotaging because you're constantly having to adapt your game to the clubs if you keep changing spec. And even if you don't change spec and change head, distance control, flight, feel, that all changes. And what you'll notice is the top players don't change very much unless they have to through contractual stuff.
Jarlath Brine. Question. Is there any advantage of going excess in wedges?
It's really a feel thing. You're not loading the shaft in wedges the same way you are as the full swing clubs. And some players just like a stiffer feel, some prefer a softer feel. And literally that's True Temper talking about kind of that's the way they fit. And they used to. They said, oh, some player an S2 because they like the softer feel, and some player an X1 because they like it stiffer. Really, it's a lot of players will find an extra stiff a bit dead in wedges, and so most of the time you are a little bit softer to get some feedback and get some kind of touch back into the shots. But ultimately, it's going to make absolutely knacker all difference to the flight. Strike quality, technique will override anything that the shaft can do from a bend point and a stiffness point of view. Weight and balance from a strike timing point of view is the most important thing.
TYB for Stuart, S3 7-iron head. Speed 90-92 miles an hour. Dynamic loft is 26 to 28 degrees. Any tips to bring it down 2 or 3 degrees? Grip, angle of attack, face to path value, a bit more pressure with your right shoulder, more down on the handle. Pick any of those, that'll all do it for you. And because I've given you all of those, that's as varied as it could be, and I could go on. I mean, to just drag it down a couple of degrees sounds innocuous, and it would be. I mean, just make your face to path value negative by 2 or 3 degrees, and that'll pretty much do it for you. But depends if you're already drawing it, then now you've got a hook. If you're already a low ball hitter, now you've got it even lower. So it just depends on the type of golfer you are. So hopefully one of those will work for you.
That's the thing with our game, isn't there? There are so many varietals to things, and by that I mean, from a fitting and a coaching point of view, we achieve the same speed, very similar angle of attack and path, and yet if we were saying, oh, what should I play? Well, one of us is really horribly wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. It sounds, it might sound a bit kind of cop-outy with those answers, but it's so player specific.
Yep. Pro V1 David. Hi guys, what is
your? That was the start of the question.
Yeah. What is your favoured pre-shot routine, alignment and address, and would you suggest a practice swing? I think you mean not tactic. Practice swing, practice swing before hitting. Yeah. So would you suggest a practice swing before hitting? What's your pre-shot routine?
I like to really picture the shot I'm trying to hit, because I find if I don't really visualize it properly, then that's when I go wrong, if I haven't really specifically picked out how I want to hit the shot. And then it's basically getting the feel. If I'm trying to hit a particular shot type, I'm trying to just get a vague feel, a couple of swings just to give myself a trigger or a feel. But normally I've got a feel from the start of the round that I'm trying to stick to. So it's just a case of just making sure that the back's moving properly and I've pictured the shot correctly, step into it, and then it's kind of, get comfortable and swing.
Yeah. I've been using the same pre-shot routine for years. I do sort of half a back swing and through swing, pick an intermediate target and go. So I'm not too overthought. I don't get too much caught up in picturing it. It doesn't really work for me, that, but yeah, that's about it really. Intermediate target, half a practice swing and pull the trigger. Yeah. Nick on par. What 7-iron numbers would you be looking for to make the change from game improvement to player's distance? Think going from 28 degrees of a 7-iron to 30 to 31. I'm not sure I'm ready.
So the one thing I'm gonna pull that question back a little bit and say is, why do you need to? I think that's the thing. Is like there's an element of, if you get to a certain standard, you must play a certain head. I'll go back. Monty played game improvement irons and got to world number 2. You don't have to play players' irons to improve your game. So just make sure that the clubs you've got are appropriate for you.
Efficient, right?
And it might be, that some players actually get more shot value out of a more compact head, more like let's say a T150 versus a T200. You might strike them a little bit better, but do it based on evidence and data and backed up reasoning rather than just, I should change because.
Yep.
If you're spinning it too low, you need more loft and more flight. So that would be one marker to look at for specifically what you've asked, though.
Very good. Craig, he asks, I think I have 2 bigger grips, mid-size. What would you do? Feel like it hard to get my right hand over and release, and the pad is low on the face. Well, from a technical standpoint, yeah, I mean, I would go with the glove size. What glove size are you, first of all? And I would first of all check the grip first. Often, if let's say you're referencing your right hand, my right hand over, tough to get my right hand over, it might purely be because you don't like the feel of a weaker right hand, not the fact that the grip is too big. So I'd go, what's the size of your glove first? And then what's the size of your grip? If you're a medium or small grip glove, you don't need a big club, a big grip, standard one. And even if you were a large, you could still get away with it. You're going to do the old grip it and make the fingers.
I was going to say, yeah, as a kind of a base marker, what we want to see is I want to see that your little finger is beyond the equator. So then it wraps around that cling, that basically clamps it in underneath the butt of the hand there. That means you haven't got, if it doesn't quite get there, it can slip off. So that way it's in the fingers, tips of the fingers touching the pad of the thumb, broadly speaking. And then in the bottom hand, you don't want to have to kind of close your finger down hard to get control. You want it just to sit and fill out that trigger finger. But having said that, some players play a much smaller grip than in theory they should, and it works well. And others did a fit on must have been Friday or Saturday. Wasn't working Saturday, Friday. Where actually, yeah, we're going bigger grips because he's got a huge amount of speed, and actually it really helped quieten hands down. So, but bigger in theory than he should be playing. So again, there's that kind of theory versus practice side of it. But that would be the baseline I'd go with.
On the same theme of grips, Blaine O'Hare asks, what's your take on Jumbo Max grips? Have one on my driver and love it. Was thinking of getting it on irons too.
Look, if it works, it works. And some of them aren't that big. Some are massive. And some are really heavy, some are really light. So there are some massive variables in like dead weight, 39 grams up to 128, which is heavier than most shafts that most people play. So depending on which one you've got on, if it feels good and your hands feel nice and stable on the club and relaxed, great. Then go with it. If it works, and that's the most important thing.
Gary Satterfield.
But they're not for everyone.
Gary Satterfield asks, hey guys, great show. Stu, what would be your top tip for getting tension out of your swing besides a Miller Lite? Thanks.
I need more than one of those, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, I think grip pressure comes from, the jerkiness or the tension away from the ball can be the club head dead on the floor. So if you've set yourself up and you've got the club head on the floor and just lying there dead, I think that actually makes someone feel tighter because they've not really got anything in their handle. So my top tip for getting tension out would be lift the head off the floor so you're taking the strain, so you're taking the weight of their head. I think that's a great way to start for you to feel like you've got something to move away. I think when it's dead on the floor and then you just sat there with nothing going on, it can be ever so quick away from the ball and get a little bit of tension. So, because ultimately tension's coming from the fact that your ball's going offline. And if your ball's going offline, it manifests itself in a quick takeaway, which manifests itself in poor technique. So if you can get your takeaway moving a little bit smoother, you'll have a much better chance, because you've got to remember, like I keep saying in so many of my videos, you've got a light end and a heavy end. And if you can move the light end so quickly, if you get a bit quick away from the ball, all of a sudden you've got this heavy end swinging around all over the place. That's why transition's such a tricky thing, because you've got a head weight moving in one direction and you've got to pull it back in the opposite direction. So number one would be hover the club head off the floor with all clubs. That would be a good one. Craig T. Back to back Craigs. My driver has 56 gram shaft. Forward is 57 gram wood shaft. And my 7 wood is 63 and my hybrid is 75. My irons are my oldest clubs and are lightweight graphite and AM2s, which are 57 to 65 grams. Is that a problem? That was a lot of weight.
So not necessarily. I mean, you'd not expect someone to go heavier in the hybrid and drop down to the irons. But again, it's only a problem if it's a problem. Sometimes specs that don't necessarily make sense do work, particularly in hybrids. And as you've got the setup there, the driver, I think the first forward shafts are very similar weights. We often see that in the lighter weight end of things. You haven't necessarily got to go 45 gram if you're at 53 in the fairways. So is it a problem? I'd say that definitely may be the answer again. If you're hitting your hybrid really well and your irons not so well, then potentially, yes, they might be a little bit light. But if they're all going well, then great.
Andrew Hommant, hi chaps. Is there a brand that has released a new driver this year that you feel isn't worth looking at over the previous model? I'll swap the shortbread for some fruit when I come over in 3 weeks.
That's an interesting question. Is there one that isn't worth looking at? I mean, so I play TSR3. Would I switch to GT? No, the TSR is working well for me. Is the GT technically a slightly better head across the face? Yes. Is it enough benefit to change? No. And I think that's ultimately where a lot of the heads are. Occasionally, one of them will just kind of light up. Like TaylorMade, for example, at the heel are so much better this year than last year. I think they found the construction of the head that works really well with the composite face now, finally. But I don't think anyone's taken a step back. There are, again, very small improvements. Maybe Dark Speed X to the DS Adapt X. If you're a higher ball hitter, the DS Adapt launches it a bit higher. So that might be one. But it's not that the DS Adapt isn't actually a really solid head. I'm not trying to be a politician there as well. Last year and this year have probably been the 2 best years across the board for product. And they're just all doing it a little bit differently this year to last year. But I don't think anyone's taken a step back.
Very good. We've got 130 of you watching. Please give us a like, and potentially, if you do enjoy it, maybe share it with your friends and let them all know that we're here on a Monday night, 6 p.m, and we answer all your questions. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Cup of tea?
We'll have an extra on next Monday.
Oh. Hen Noir coming in. Henny's in next week. Henny Koyak from Sky. She's coming in to join us for the live, taking questions, getting involved. She's looking thin as well, right?
She's looking very well.
She's looking very trim. She'll be on the mat hitting some balls. Well, if she's not ready, she will be. So yeah, make sure that you're tuning in next week for a bit of
review Bay Hill, preview the players.
Yeah,
getting into big tournament season.
Absolutely.
Good question. Kind of puff my chest out there.
Yeah, no, I like it. I assume you'll be hitting balls all week.
Chest for puff out.
Lewis Gocher asks, question this. Good evening to you both. Good evening to you, Lewis. Hope you had a good weekend. We did. Hope you did too. I have a more personal question to you both this week. Can you both remember the light bulb moment that enabled you to reach scratch?
So for me, it was short game. Long game's always been, I've always had a hook as a miss, but my wedge game, just spending time practicing that and holding out. That was the key thing. 6 foot and in, and regulating wedge distances.
Yeah, I
Not
never.
exciting.
I never really had that moment until I turned pro. You didn't need to get off scratch to turn pro, but to consistently shoot scratch. I've been playing pro-am tours and mini tours and traveling around the world on crap tours, principally, not DP World Tour, scratching, well, not making a living actually, but yeah,
Sounds like my Euro Pro days.
Yeah, right. Just brutal. I think the aha moment was feeling comfortable in my own skin on the golf course. That really making yourself feel like you belong there. That was the moment, really. Everyone can shoot a better score in practice. Everyone can shoot, the score around their home golf course, but traveling around and then doing it in front of other people and then doing it in foreign climates. So shooting scratch at your home golf course is a piece of cake, really. And that doesn't sound complacent with that. But
that kind of level,
it didn't really mean anything, did it, when you were at your home golf course? So for me, to do it regularly, it was when I became a bit more comfortable and confident in my own ability. I don't think it was a all my putting is now good enough to be scratch, or my swing is now good enough to be scratch. I think you just became that you thought of yourself as a scratch golfer and a pro and a good player.
Interesting. Once I started to play a bit better once I stopped trying to shoot good scores.
Yeah,
Once I turned pro, I tried too hard, which was horrific. I kept missing cuts by 1 or 2. It was, I'd have a good round, I wouldn't follow it up. But it was once I stopped pressuring myself to make good scores, and then if I'd made a couple of bogeys, I'd then try and force it, and it would all go horribly wrong. So that would go alongside a bit of that, feeling comfortable in your own skin and just trusting your game.
There's no magic answer for like one key to it for either of us. So I think that's probably maybe what you were doing, was maybe trying to lean in and maybe it was his putting. But I think what handicap do you play off, Lewis? Is that what's inspired the question?
And the backstory is actually a lot of hard work getting you to the point you trust your game. That really is the unsexy answer to it, is that.
Yeah, I never trusted my game. I mean, I trust my game more now than I've ever done. You know what I mean? And I was taking coaching from good coaching, and I just felt in the black hole, like most people probably still do.
I was just delusional.
I think any mini tour player is like. James Franklin, evening gents, evening James. 2 Qs, greedy James. I have Ventus Red 7 stiff shafts in both 4 and 7 wood. Yeah. Is there any way of knowing roughly what driver shafts would be good? 2, best drills for early extension.
Driver shaft wise, if you're in the red 7, the red works better in fairways, a softer tip. You're generally helping get a little bit of kick through the shaft. You normally go a stiffer tip in the driver, but chances if you're in the 7 in the fairways, you're likely to be in the 60 grams weights in the driver. Outside of that, again, people do swing their drivers and require different profiles. So again, there are a vast number of shafts, but you could, if you're in the Ventus line, you could go the blue 6 stiff in the driver as a start point to test.
Very good. And a drill for early extension. I mean, that's a question that is asked the world over, but I'll answer it anyway.
But you've only got about 45 of those.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I've done loads of early extension videos on my channel. But here's the problem with early extension. Early extension is you standing up, lifting the handle up, and the head goes to the floor. If you want to get rid of early extension, you are trying to be more in posture, which means that your handle now needs to move lower to the floor. Well, that's going to be a problem because the shafts stand up and you're used to unloading it downwards. So you're better off learning how to unload a golf club on a more horizontal plane. And so what I would get you to do is pop the club head behind the golf ball and just swing the club head above the ball and gradually lift the head above the ball and move the handle to the floor. Now you can see that the club head is outside the ball. Now what I need to do is move my weight back into my heels and move my handle closer to me to line the face up. Because ultimately when you get someone out of early extension, and you put them into forward flexion, they immediately start shanking it because they've moved the club shaft from being like this unloaded to like this. So as a quick tip, there isn't one. But if you understand the nuances of early extension, which is about making the club head feel like it can unload itself more on a horizontal plane through strike, you will start to feel more into your heels, handle more down, and you'll feel like you can brush the ball away without too much problem compared to coming from something that looked along those lines. They're very different patterns, and so you're dealing with that shaft pitch. So hopefully that's given you a bit more of an insight into what you're looking to feel rather than just a quick tip, hopefully.
Tough change that though.
It is a tough change. Yeah, it is tough. So many people, there is a physicality to it. But we talk about all of the time in these sessions. And look, we're not going to get through all the questions, so that ship has sailed. But we'll be back next week, so you can ask them next week. But we talk about all the time about the heavy golf clubs and how the sequencing and how it. We're just managing how someone unloads a golf club with heavy end and light end. And if you're balancing those two ends up or not balancing up, you'll misstrike it, miss the golf course, and if even worse, you'll miss the county. So once you get a weight that works with your profile of golf swing, you become the best golfer that you can be with your technique. And that's what Simon and these guys here are just exceptional at. So think about the golf swing as swinging a bit of weight around, and there's a light end and a heavy end. You've got something that flexes in the middle, and then you've got dumped a load of weight on the other end. If you can't manage that with the weight of club that you've got, it's never going to work. So you come and see someone like Simon, get the weight right. Now you can move within your corridor, find the middle of the sweet spot. You'll still have a bend in the sky, but it'll be much less. Be able to be more in balance that you talked about.
Yeah, and that's when someone like you can make big differences to someone. Then you're really affecting someone's patterns and sequencing to line everything up correctly.
100%.
And it is a real 1 + 1 = 3.
That's right. That's right. So early extension is just a misunderstanding necessarily of how you want to use that heavy end and light end. Hopefully that was a long-winded answer. I didn't mean to go on about that. It's jumped down.
Right, we're gonna do some quick fire.
Well, yeah, we can do quick fire. I mean, we've got 5 minutes.
Quick fire a few in.
Left, James Franklin, even gents. Those 2 Qs. James Franklin, the left rough. Is there anything from a setup that can promote a toe strike? Anything from a setup that can promote a toe strike? I'm a middle, newly fitted T100 with standard Project X 6.0, but toe hit driver with hazardous Gen 4 60 gram 6.0 in the TSR3s drivers, no matter what I try. From a setup standpoint, you could have the shaft too laid down, so you would be standing up, which is pulling the face away. So you could have yourself too tipped over, and you could have yourself too far away from the golf ball. That would be the best answer for that.
Could possibly be a little headlight, possibly, but yeah.
Jason Owen, I'm 60 years old with 10 clubs now, handicap 15. I guarantee, oh goodness me. Oh no, I thought I'd answered that question.
No, I think that was a reply to one of the earlier ones.
Right. So Jason Owen replies to, I'm 60 years old with 10 clubs now, handicap 15. I guarantee you the average golfer just has 14 clubs in the bag because tour players do. Well, good to have your opinion.
If each of them's got a different use and augments your game, great. If it doesn't, then don't carry it.
Absolutely. Mr. Suarez, hi guys. If my longer irons are a 6-iron, would the AMT shafts be a good option if fitted?
I mean, the thing with them, if your longest irons are 6, then there's limited opportunity for that weight progression to really make a big impact. But certainly, it helps if having a bit of weight in the short irons gets you control. Then that gives you the most speed possible in the 6-iron without it going to the exaggeration that it would if you're going down to a 3 or 4. So definitely, maybe.
Chum, can you elaborate on shaft stiffness torque values? For example, the new Diamana WB53TX has a torque value of 4.6 degrees, while the WB63R is 3.2 degrees. Does that mean the 63R would feel stiffer than the 53TX?
No, it just means that it has a higher degree of resistance to twist. The TX is still going to be stiffer through the profile of the shaft, through the midsection. The R will play softer than the TX. So you'll get kick through the body of the shaft. It just doesn't rotate as much at impact.
Reese Edwards, hi guys. Any ideas on how the Vokey low bounce K grind would play compared to the M grind? Similar bounces but different sole shapes. Thank you.
So you've got width rather than bounce. So the M grind kicks up a bit and then trails off. The K is wider and flatter. So if you don't open the face up, then the low bounce K is good. If you open it up, then the low bounce K, because it's wide, the back edge is still going to get in the way, and the M grind is going to be better.
Richard Skinner, hi Stuart and Simon, amazing show. Thanks for testing the Callaway driver and the Artera shaft, our pleasure. John Kelly, what are the best new lightweight driver shafts, 38 to 48 grams?
Ooh. Well, you've got the Artera in the 45 odd grams. The TPTs are very, very good at that weight.
One more.
There's the anti-gravity 33 by Graphite Design as well.
Nick K, what driver shafts are similar to the Ping Tour Black?
Upper mid balance, stiff tip. So I'm going, and they have a fairly firm feel. The Devotion HB is a little higher balance, so probably something upper mid. I was just thinking. Let me just ponder whilst you ask the next question, just to make sure I'm getting it right.
The left rough, can you both lash off a 7-wood? We will do that next week for you, the left rough. Richard Skinner, hi guys, I still have an SLDR driver. Can you post-fit with a new shaft? Yes or no?
Yes, you can.
Perfect.
And maybe the RTX Blue 70, because it was more like 68 grams.
Is that to the answer to the
black,
other question?
yeah.
The left rough, I'd say it's time to cash in on that SLDR. Laughter aloud. ChatGPT, Simon my goat. Simon Hogg, you have probably been asked 1,000 times, but is it worth getting fit for clubs as a beginner when the strike is still not 100% consistent with all clubs, it seems?
So very briefly, it's a difficult one because you could be being hampered by your current clubs. So at the very worst, what you do by getting fitted is gives you a benchmark so you know what's you and what's the clubs. Either you're going to find a big change and it's worth doing something, or not, and you go, you know what, stick with what you got for a while and then come back in the future.
Lewis Goucher, currently off 2.1. Thought you might be a low golfer. Stuart, really appreciate both your in-depth answers. Very good. And just to finish up, we have done it. Amazing. Ollie, evening gents. One of my biggest issues is taking range improvements to the course, fear of club turf interaction and poor contact resulting in course making life a little bit frustrating. Any tips? Hitting off grass is always the way to go if you're battling with taking your range game to the golf course. Failing that, go out and play golf on your own and give yourself no pressure and bleed it in that way would be my advice. Gary Satterfield, can you guys say what your longest drive is ever? And I don't care if it was 40 mile an hour downwind, wouldn't have a clue.
I hit one down at Royal St George's a couple of years back on the 15th. I think it was about 375 yards. It must have hit a sprinkler head and was downwind, but nearly got in the crossbugger short the green.
It would have been something out in Australia. It would have been something out in Australia, yeah, like 350 plus. Yeah, those days are long gone. Ian Bryan, hey Stu, have you a view on the value of hack motion? It's everywhere at the moment. Yeah, I think it's a good aid to measure your wrist angles. I wouldn't go too deep into what their values are in terms of bow is a draw and cup is a slice. Doesn't work quite that way for me, but it's a great bit of kit to use as benchmarking for your wrist angles. We did it.
Very good.
With 1 minute
well
over.
Done, well done.
Well done. Oh, well, as usual.
Well done with all the questions.
As usual, you have been a fantastic audience. You've all thrown us your questions and you still haven't stumped Simon and you haven't stumped me yet. So good luck next week. We'll have Henny on the show. She is going to be with us. So do make sure you join in. Simon's rammed. The boys are fitting and making people play well left, right and centre. Aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and James,
absolutely, yeah.
and James has the easiest job here. I mean, he just sits back there and just points.
James has got a lot of boxes to open.
Yes, he does. Exactly.
He's got cardboard cuts all over his hand.
Well, until next week, you have a great week. Watch the golf. Stay happy and healthy. Practice hard. Spring's coming, and we'll see you next week.